Let's talk about this beautiful dark side of the moon from Omega. This carries the 18 karat Sedna gold bezel, the Sarah gold index ring. We have the Sedna gold hands and markers with the lovely Meteorite Dial that I think is so fitting on a Speedmaster. Now, I will say this particular watch is not necessarily geared toward the average watch enthusiast. And let me explain my thinking there. I think when the average watch enthusiast, and I include myself in that statement, when we're looking to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on a Speedmaster, we want to go with the traditional. We're going to go with a smaller 42 millimeter size with Lamania-based architecture for the movement. You know, this brand, Omega, has not let us forget that the Speedmaster was used by astronauts in space, by NASA in low Earth orbit, on the way to the moon, on the surface of another celestial body in our solar system, different from the planet that we're standing on right now. I mean, the history of the Speedmaster is so dang cool. Arguably, it is the most significant history from any watch, from any brand, and I love that. I kind of buy into that to a degree like many other people out there. And so when I'm ready to buy a Speedmaster, when I'm ready to buy an Omega, I want to go with the classic moon watch. I want to go with the conservative option that is a bit more affordable and palatable for the wallet, for the pocketbook. And I kind of write off, and I think a lot of us are guilty of this, I write off the larger, more exotic, and more expensive coaxial variations of the Speedmaster. And is that a mistake? One could argue that it definitely is. So today we're going to be taking a look at this gray side of the moon. What that is in reference to is the material of the case. This is not a coated stainless steel or titanium. This is ceramic. And you guys can see there is a high level of finish and detail. It's almost indistinguishable when it comes to the finish from your stainless steel variations. And so if we look at the lyre style lugs, you guys can see the high gloss polish, and then we can see this circular brushing on the tops of the lugs and the side of the case. That is really fun attention to detail. I like the lightweight nature of the ceramic, and I like the fact that it's basically scratch proof, mark proof, mar proof. This is going to look fantastic 15 years from now, to the degree that standard stainless steel or titanium or a coated metal just will not be able to obtain. Now, let's take a look at the dial. This is the star of the show for me. This is a Meteorite Dial. And again, how fitting to see a Speedmaster fitted with a Meteorite Dial. It's more fitting, in my opinion, than seeing it on a lovely Rolex GMT Master 2 or a Zelos, a micro brand that carries a Meteorite from the Miona Lusta Meteorite. I love seeing this pattern. I love seeing the crystallization between the nickel and the iron. It's just so cool to think that this material did not originate on this planet. And I have a long, thin slice of it on my wrist at the moment. I mean, that idea is just so interesting. And if we look at the other dial details, you guys will notice very defined printing. It's silvered. There's a little bit of reflection to it. Again, it's dimensional. It raises off of the face of this exotic material to a pleasing degree. We have applied red gold markers, a red gold handset, and red gold needle hands for the sub-registers, the bicompact sub-registers. And you guys can see there is a lovely luster and warmth and reflectivity to the precious metal that you don't necessarily get with plated alloys. This is so pretty depending on the light situation that you're in. And you can especially see it here on the macro shots. I think this is coming through pretty well. In some lights, you see the grain. It's very clinical and defined and clean and sharp and linear. And I love to see it. And when you compare that to other brushed dials, other brushed handsets on other watches, even the Railmaster that I had a chance to review a couple months ago, and really you can see the difference in quality and execution and some of the differences in price between an entry-level luxury product from Omega and then this luxury higher-end product from the same brand. Some of those prices become justified when you're looking at the little detail. The devil is in the details. Now let's look at the layout briefly. We have running seconds on the 9 o'clock side, that register, and I like the fact that these registers are defined by a sloped angled surround. I think that looks really sharp. If you look at the 3 o'clock side, that register, at first glance, it kind of appears like it's a secondary time zone, but that's not the case. We just have the combination of your hour counter and your minute counter. So the larger hand, the longer hand is your elapsed minutes, and then the shorter hand is your elapsed hours. So you will be able to keep track of an event that you're timing up to 12 hours to the second, just like you would on a standard moon watch. Now, because we have the loss of a traditional register that carries the hours, we can now have a date at the 6 o'clock position. It's very balanced. You can see it's blacked out. I think that is appropriate. And I do enjoy seeing the use of red with the Speedmaster signature, the use of red in your gold chronograph hand. The overall look here, although it is fairly monotone, broken up with a little bit of red and a little bit of red gold. We have a Sarah gold insert for the ceramic bezel. I think is just clean and sharp and beautiful, slightly understated for such an exotic material for the dial, and then your scratch-proof contemporary material for the case, the crown, and the pushers. Now, I will add, the crown has a signature which is loomed, and so in low light you can see the Omega logo done in superluminova. I think that's really cool. Normally you see something like this on a micro brand. You don't see something like this very often with a mainstream brand, let alone a luxury brand putting forth a product north of $10,000. So retail price as shown is $14,050, which is quite a bit more expensive than your Hesalite moon watches, than your sapphire sandwiches. And I think honestly it is completely justified due to the precious metal, due to the use of ceramics, due to the use of meteorite, and then your upgraded in-house movement, which let's spend a couple minutes and talk about right now. So this is the caliber 9300. This is a coaxial caliber from Omega that carries twin barrel architecture, a free sprung balance, a silicon hairspring. This will be completely impervious to magnetic flux. We have 60 hours of power reserve, a high joule count, and then my favorite feature, which is the time zone complication, which in my opinion is the most practical, my favorite of the common or practical type complications, not taking into account equation of time or some of the other, annual calendars, perpetual calendars, minute repeaters, stuff like that are incredibly cool. This has got to be my favorite of the practical ones. I love being able to independently adjust the hour hand forward or backward, without hacking the balance and stopping the movement. Being able to do that on the fly, it's great if you travel, if you cross time zones. It's great if you live in the United States and are subject to daylight savings time, or if you're at the end of an irregular month and you need to adjust the date. You can do that in a number of seconds with a few extra turns on the crown. I just think that's lovely. And I do enjoy the machine arabesque finishing here, the column wheel chronograph. I think visually this is very sharp, even though it is machine finished. And the look has become synonymous with Omega for me. I love seeing the black screws. I love seeing the red text. And there is almost an excess of text and description on this in-house chronograph. You guys can see they label each barrel, they label the column wheel. It's almost comical how much text is here, but I love it. I think this is great. I don't think it's gimmicky. I don't think it's too much. I'm not offended by the amount of text on this coaxial movement. Now let me sample the actuation here so you can hear the column wheel. You can see that there is no stutter, and you can get a good sense of how this would feel, if you were to do the actuation. I like the action. I think it's crisp, it's defined, it's mechanical feeling. In my opinion, it's completely appropriate, it's satisfying. I have no complaints with the actuation of this 9300 movement here. But let's talk about negative elements. Where does this watch kind of fall short? I think there's one thing that bothers me personally, and it's more of a personal preference, and I think some of you will see this coming a mile away. But I'm a huge bracelet guy. I'm a bracelet dog. I love a good bracelet, and Omega makes some fantastic bracelets. Very comfortable, very adjustable, very practical. And it's kind of a shame that you can't get one here with these ceramic variations of the larger Speedmaster size. And I think if Omega were to offer a ceramic bracelet option, I would be all over that, because I look at this watch and really for me personally, it hits all of the boxes. We have precious metal. We have a lovely Meteorite Dial that I think is appropriate for a watch of this history, the Speedmaster. I love the accuracy. I like the date at the 6 o'clock position. I love the time zone feature. We have good low light luminescence. We have anti-reflective treatment on the box sapphire crystal. Even the box sapphire crystal on the backside just looks so great. You get a very expansive view of this movement. And when the watch is on wrist, you can see a little bit of sunlight coming through, lighting up that crystal between the ceramic case and your wrist. And not to mention the lightweight nature of the ceramic, the scratch resistance. I just think this hits all of the boxes for me. I just know I would not be able to bond with this long term without a good bracelet. And then I look at other watches from the Swatch Group, specifically Rado, and they're using ceramic and making bracelets. And I know the technology is present for this brand. So Omega or the Swatch Group, if by some chance you listen to this video, that's what's holding this back for me as a consumer, I would be all over this if it had a ceramic bracelet option. That would just be the ultimate. It would take it up to the next level. It would be Grail level status. And I would enjoy wearing this next to my Speedmaster. And who knows, maybe this would boot the Sapphire Sandwich, right? The traditional watch that we all are drawn to as watch enthusiasts. Maybe that would boot it out of the rotation. I don't know. I just know that this watch is special. It has been a treat to have on wrist and to check out. And I will leave you one thing in closing here as we wrap up the video. And that is, I think a lot of people are apprehensive about this particular watch and model because of the size. And I'd just like to say that it is not as scary as the dimensions would indicate, partially because the lug-to-lug length is reasonable at 50 millimeter. And then the other reason, we have lightweight ceramic, so it's, again, very comfortable on wrist. But the overall height, most of it is coming between those two box sapphire crystals. So it wears thinner than the nominal dimensions would indicate. And so no, this does not feel like a Panerai or a large Breitling or a large Seiko. This really blends on wrists very well. And I have no complaints with the way this fits and wears, and even putting it up next to my Submariner, which I know a lot of people are familiar with the size. It's one of the most comfortable watches on the market. You guys can see visually, it really doesn't look that much bigger. So in the end, this is just a really fun piece that I will look back fondly, and I will look every year to see if Omega introduces a ceramic bracelet, because if they do, I'm a goner, right? I'm going to fall hard for this really interesting and contemporary watch with fascinating elements and a great level of detail. I hope the quality has come through this video, through these images and these macro shots. Please let me know if you guys have any specific questions. And if you're shopping for an Omega, whether it is, an Aquaterra or a Globemaster or a Planet Ocean or a Seamaster, or even if it's on the high end, like this gold Seamaster 300 with the lapis lazuli dial, whatever it is, I'm going to recommend exquisite timepieces in Naples, Florida. Nick Lukas is a longtime viewer of mine. He's a young watch enthusiast, and he'll definitely be able to help you out if you're shopping and if you're interested in a particular model. So all of that is in the description. Thank you again very much for watching today. Reach out with questions, and I'll see you real soon.